HRN listeners. As we celebrate our 15th year, we are deepening our commitment to giving voice to the next generation of food systems storytellers, and we need your help. Our internship and fellowship programs help activate new possibilities for underrepresented and underestimated young people through experiential journalism, audio engineering, and production training. Through these unique programs, HRN helps food equity stewards build essential workforce readiness skills that expand their potential and foster economic mobility. Please consider supporting these critical programs. And with a minimum donation, you can be entered to win a dinner for two at an amazing restaurant in one of 8 cities and tickets to a concert at a great venue in one of those cities. We have incredible partners across the country who have donated, as they also share our passion for helping to educate the next generation of food systems storytellers. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. And make sure you donate before March 31st. Thank you.
Today's show is being brought to you by Bob's Red Mill, believers in good food for all. Learn more at bobsredmill.com/podcast.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. We're a member-supported food radio network broadcasting over 35 weekly shows live from Bushwick, Brooklyn. Join our hosts as they lead you through the world of craft brewing, behind the scenes of the restaurant industry, inside the battle over school food, and beyond. Find us at heritageradionetwork.org.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Grape Nation, your weekly wine journey. Our guest is Michelle Biscieglia, wine director at Blue Hill in New York City. We'll talk about what to drink with farm-to-table food. We'll talk about sustainable food and wine and a lot more. We'll also taste an Italian white for our weekly wine sip. I'm your host, Sam Ben-Ruby. Stay with us for the Grape Nation on the Heritage Radio Network. We bring wine to the people. All right, Michelle Biscieglia worked her way up through the New York restaurant scene and also got her hands dirty working the harvest in Burgundy and Piedmont. She now oversees the wine program at one of the true farm-to-table restaurants in the U.S. at Dan Barber's award-winning Blue Hill in New York City, down in Greenwich Village. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Good to have you on here.
Yeah.
I want you to give our audience a little context and tell us about your journey in life and wine that got you to where you are now, which is the wine director at Blue Hill. Now, you don't have to tell me what color pajamas you wore and you had a mean aunt. Just
wouldn't remember that anyway.
Yeah.
So. Wine kind of started in my life later than I think most people possibly in the industry. I didn't really grow up with wine. I grew up just outside of Atlantic City in South Jersey. My parents drank like boxed wine and Coors Light, and that was that. So I never really had been introduced to any sort of fine wine until later, till probably late college and then after college. So I went to college in Philly. I was pre-med, early acceptance into medical school.
So you got in.
And then, yeah.
Oh, boy. And your parents must be pissed.
They're not anymore.
Not anymore.
Time of, for sure. So, right before I was about to enter my first year, I kind of took a step back and said, I don't really know. I'm not 100,000% into this. I think I'm going to take some time off and travel a little bit. So I had double majored in Spanish along with the pre-med major and decided to go to South America and travel around. Came back and was like, I don't really think I'm going to stick with med school. I'm going to take maybe a year off and figure it out. My sister was living in New York at the time.
So just as a bookend, what year was this?
2008.
8, okay. So we're working from 8 up.
8
Go
up,
ahead.
yeah. So came to New York and walked into like an open call interview for waiters at Pastis. And got hired and literally like put on a uniform and started working like that hour. I think if I remember correctly, they were that desperate. So their wine program there at the time was run by Chris Goodhart, who was an incredible wine director, very humble, very knowledgeable, but really made wine very approachable. And he would do these really incredible staff wine tastings where he would open up bottles that were like $1,000, $2,000 on the wine list.
That was on the list of pastis?
Yeah. Old Chave, Old Burgundy, Old Leroy, things like that. And I was like, whoa.
And did he explain sort of the heaviness of this is not an ordinary bottle of wine?
Definitely.
Okay.
So you stepped up, you took kind of the basic intro courses with him as a waiter there. You were required to, and then he had kind of the voluntary ones for things like that, believe it or not.
Right.
And they weren't always full, which is crazy. But after tasting those old wines, I was kind of taken aback, like, whoa, I can't believe that this beverage exists, that things can taste like this, things can age like this. I want to learn about why this is happening, how this is happening, and what's happening.
Wow.
So I approached him and said, hey, can I kind of work with you, just taste with you, figure out kind of what you're doing? And he was like, absolutely, let's do it. So I kind of became his cellar rat, tasted with him. And then, after that I said, I really want to go and work in France and see what this is about. And he was like, yeah, you should go to Burgundy. Don't go anywhere else but Burgundy. And I said, okay. So I emailed anyone I'd ever met in that past kind of like 6 months when I was working with him. Yeah, and almost everybody said no. And then one guy said yes, and it was the guy who I ended up working for. His name is Blair Pethel. He's an American guy. And his winery is called Domaine du Blair, and he's in Savigny-les-Bains.
So he, at some point, moved there?
Yeah, he moved.
Property,
he had moved there maybe about 10 years before. He was a political journalist in D.C.,
Wow.
wanted to change his life.
So instead of going to Napa, he went to Burgundy.
He went to Burgundy,
Good move.
and became respected in Burgundy. Like worked for a lot of the people around, and he was very liked in Burgundy, which I think is probably pretty hard to do.
Yeah.
coming from the outside. So I worked with him 2009 and 2010.
Wasn't
2 harvests in a row.
Great vintage.
They were both great and
Right.
very different. So 2009, 2010 in Burgundy. It was amazing to see the drastic difference in fruit, but also in kind of like what you have to do.
You really
for wine, like
got to firsthand see and experience.
I mean, in 2009, I remember we made a rosé for like the house wine out of Premier Cru Volnay for us to just drink,
Nice.
And in 2010, that
Fun.
definitely didn't happen. We were still drinking the previous year's rosé. That's how much was left over. So I came back from Burgundy in 2010.
Now, when you were there, you did everything?
Everything.
Anything you I'm sure you volunteered everything.
Everything, yeah. I mean, I wanted to see every aspect and every side. I went a little bit early and stayed a little bit later
Right.
than harvest. So I was there for more than just like a month. I think I was there for a total of 3 months each year.
Did you enjoy it, or
I loved it.
became tough?
Not at all. I loved it.
You loved it.
I loved every part about it. And I loved how much wine we got to taste and how much you got to learn by being in that place and kind of seeing Burgundy firsthand. It's like nothing else in the world. So I came back to New York and said, okay, I think I'm going to keep wine in my life is what I want to do. I want to make this my career, but I didn't really know that much about service. So I was like, okay, I want to work in a Michelin 3-star restaurant. I want to work at Danielle. So I applied to Danielle, and they were like, you don't have any wine experience, so you'll be a back waiter. Here's a polishing rag, polish glasses for 10 hours a day. And I was like, okay. So I did that for a few months.
Was that actually at Danielle or one of the other restaurants?
That was at Danielle.
It was.
At Restaurant Danielle. So I got to meet the wine team there, kind of made sure I befriended them all a little bit, to kind of get my name in the game.
Are they gracious? Are they
They were extremely
insular?
gracious.
They took you in if you showed an interest?
Extremely.
Okay.
Yeah, extremely. And the general manager there really helped me too, because he was very excited about my enthusiasm. So that worked well. And then Beloud Sud opened, and then I got offered to open Beloud Sud as an opening sommelier. So then that's how I got kind of my foot in the door, and then worked there for a few years.
Was Barbeloud there too?
Yeah. Yep. So
Were you doing both?
I was doing both.
Right.
I was doing both, kind of back and forth. But I worked at Beloud Sud with Michael Madrigal and Levy Dalton. So it was the three of us. So it was pretty
Levy left first?
Levy left first.
And then Michael hung on for years.
Yeah, Michael hung on for a longer time because he went over from Barbeloud. So I got to work with incredible people, taste incredible wines, and really kind of develop my palate and I think my style as far as wine. And then I left there and went to Italy for a summer and worked in the vineyard. So it wasn't harvest; it was the vineyard work of the summer. So it was pretty
Like trimming,
Yeah, it was
canopies, and
exactly
whatever, all that stuff.
But again, being there firsthand, seeing those vineyards of Barolo and kind of driving through Serralunga, it's like, oh, okay, everything clicks and makes sense. And then I came back to New York.
Why did you pick Piedmont? Did you have an affinity for Barolo, or
big time?
Just...
Yeah, I think any Burgundy lover, if you're going to go anywhere in Italy, it's going to be
Right.
Piedmont, right?
I agree with
Yeah.
you. That's what I hope you were going to
Yeah,
say.
it was a natural kind of transition over there. And then
So this was as you were working at Barbaloo?
I left.
You left. Okay.
I left there. Yeah, I left.
So you said, let me do another trip abroad.
Yeah. I figured, let me do it now, get it out of the way, continue to learn. And Burgundy was such an eye-opening and mesmerizing experience. I wanted to do kind of the same thing in Italy.
Right.
Also kind of practice the language a little bit. So, yeah, it was incredible. And then I came back in the fall. I think it was 2011, maybe later. No,
it was 11.
Yeah,
'cause
11.
You started at Blue Hill in 12.
Right. Came back, so no, it must have been 12 because I started Blue Hill as soon as I came back.
Right.
I came back, and actually one of the first managers of Blue Hill used to be the general manager of Belutsud. So he called me and said, I heard you're back. Blue Hill's looking for a wine director. Are you interested? And I said, absolutely.
Wine
So-
director, not even a som
There was only one wine person.
and
That's
they're
it.
the director. Okay.
And that's it. So
Good break.
Yeah.
So you took the job there in 2012. Mm-hmm. And you knew what you were getting into? I mean, interesting, different chef, restaurant menu?
Yes and no. I mean, part of the interview process there is going up to Stone Barns, having a dinner up there, meeting the entire team. It's a very tight family. So when you go up there and you interview with like 20 people. Like all of the chefs come and talk to you. All of the managers of both restaurants talk to you. The president, the two owners, the sous chef, everybody, just to kind of like get a feel for, does it feel right? Very much about gut feeling.
Did it go well in your mind?
Yeah.
And did it feel well on your end?
Yeah, it felt great.
You didn't feel like these guys don't get me, or it was.
No,
it
they
worked.
were. Yeah, they all kind of had a genuine interest in what I was saying, and it felt pretty good when I was chatting with them all, pretty much.
How
so.
long was the process? Few weeks.
Well,
few
it
months?
was. I think it's something that normally would take a few weeks, but they were pretty last minute
They had
as
to
far
move.
as they
Good
had to
for you.
move fast. So, yeah, I just kind of went for it
Good
hard.
for you.
Yeah, it was good.
So now, is that, I wouldn't say the job of your dreams, but that's what you wanted to be doing at that point, right?
Definitely. I think as far as wine, if you're interested in food, wine, and agriculture, it's got to be the best job in New York.
How much did you know about Blue Hill? I mean, you knew they had that whole,
Yeah.
Dan Barber was leading that whole drive.
Yeah, I knew that he was, on the forefront as far as the farm to table movement. I didn't quite realize how in depth he was and how involved he was, way more beyond just farm to table,
Right.
But I learned a lot in my first year.
So I want to, a little later in the interview, we'll come back and
Okay.
we'll cover Blue Hill thoroughly. But I want to run through a few things with you before
Sure.
we get to that. I've had a lot of women somms on the show.
Okay.
And sometimes I ask women somms if now in the industry you're more accepted and the path is easier. Because I had Pascaline Lepeltier. She said in Europe it was terrible.
Sure.
She got here, it was better, and New York's better than most places. But is there still anything going on, or you don't feel it as far as being a woman sommelier?
I don't feel it that often. There's definitely sometimes like the boys clubs who just like want to hang out and drink a ton of wine, and they don't really like want women around. I don't know. Maybe like their girlfriends get jealous if there's like a woman around there drinking wine. Who knows what it is? But I don't really care. I love what I do, and I have a ton of friends, both male and female, throughout the industry, throughout the business, and I think everyone respects each other and everyone supports each other, and that's all that you really need.
So I think in New York it's less of an issue.
I think it is.
I mean,
And
obviously they came after you for the job, and the process happened quickly. And
Yeah.
it's the best person. Forget about guy, woman, or all. of
I
that.
think so. I think most people nowadays think like that. You occasionally get, you're like old school business guy in the restaurant who's like, you're the sommelier.
Well, I was going to ask you
and
that.
you're-
So that's the industry.
Yeah.
The customer.
Yeah, and you're just like, yeah, I am. What do you want to know? And then, you just get them to trust you within
Do
that 1
they
second.
ever persist?
No, I've never had them persist. Never.
I think the vibe of the restaurant, too, is a little mellower.
Definitely.
You know, there are some other restaurants that are a lot more stiff. What about, do you feel the same way with women in winemaking? I mean, have women made strides in winemaking? Do you think it's still difficult?
I think they have. I mean, I think like the Muneraja Borg sisters, like everyone respects and loves them. Or
are they running the
the
winery
three of them are
now?
running the winery. You know,
and it's an old winery, but same thing with Antinori in a way, right? The daughters.
Yeah. Gaia in Italy, right?
His
The daughter,
daughter.
she's representing the winery. Maggie Harrison from Antica Terra in Willamette Valley, she's doing incredible things and very well respected. I think, they're kind of in the playing field, and it's pretty leveling out pretty nicely.
So I guess I wouldn't say it's a turning point, but the issues are not, major anymore. Hopefully it's a little behind us. The percentages are still low. But I think...
But it's rising.
Yeah, and
it's
I
rising.
think you inspire other women. I think
hope
the
so.
other women in the business.
I hope so, because it's, you just figure out what you want to do and then just do it, no matter who or what you are.
Right, right. It's nice to hear that.
Yep.
Because every now and then somebody really bitches pretty hard about it. But
I feel good.
That's becoming less and less. All right, I want to ask you some stuff about wine. As summer approaches, I've noticed something more recently than in the past. Canned wine spritzers.
I was just talking about it yesterday.
What's going on? And there's a whole separate issue of sommeliers making wine. I had Patrick Cappiello on. He came in with
40
his 40
ounce. Sure.
But what's going on with wine spritzers and, even some higher quality canned wine? What's your take on that?
I think it's like just going back to simplicity, like keeping it easy, keeping it fresh, something that's just like pop and pour. I think with the inaccessibility of some of the higher end wines these days, it's kind of nice to go back to like the 40 ounce Muscadet or, I saw
but
someone
the
else.
quality on that is good.
Yeah, it's pretty
he's
good.
Sourcing. And I guess the spritzer thing, you're sitting on a beach, you want to get a little buzz, you're not going to bring a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
It's pretty delicious.
Easy to carry around.
Not the type of stuff you serve in the restaurant.
No,
right?
I don't have any of that stuff in the restaurant. I mean, maybe at a simple bistro place, why not? You can go to Chelsea Market and...
I could see it, in a lot of places.
Go to Lobster Place and get a glass of that 40 ounce Muscadet.
Now, have you tasted some of this stuff?
Yeah, I've had the Ramona Spritz.
Which is Jordan Salcedo.
And it's delicious. It's delicious, yeah.
Who knew? It's
easy, throwback patio pounder. It's good.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, tell me about these. So that's sort of a trend.
Yeah, it is.
That didn't happen years ago. It's happening now. We'll see next year, the year after, if there's 10 more guys or levels.
It's fun. It's like a little hipstery, but I dig it. If it's delicious, why not?
I think it has traction because the people behind it are passionate about it.
Yeah, and respected people.
And they get out there. And they're respected.
Yeah.
Tell me about any other trends or happenings in wine or regions. Even if you look at the 4 years you've been at Blue Hill, I'm sure the list has shifted. Things have changed. You've paid attention. What's at the top of the list?
I think just things for me, wines that stand out for me a little bit more nowadays are wines that are a little bit more rare, harder to find.
Give me an
but still
example.
Very approachable.
Does that mean expensive?
No, approachable and inexpensive.
So what?
Good value. So, for example, we have a wine on the wine list from Crete, but it's got age on it. It's 1999 vintage.
Crete is an island of Greece?
Yes.
So it's a Greek wine.
Greek wine.
Somebody forget about it, or they intentionally age it?
No, they intentionally age it. And it's
a white or a red?
They make both. I like the red. It's an indigenous grape varietal to that region called Liatico, but the winemaker did his homework and worked at places. I think he worked at Chateau Margaux in Bordeaux for a little bit. He worked at, I want to say, Scavino in Barolo, and then came back to his homeland of Crete and decided to make this wine that had ageability.
Let's drop a little knowledge. The name of the wine is?
Domaine Economou.
Spell?
Economou.
And that's from the island of Crete.
Island of Crete.
And they make a white and a red.
Yep.
Forget the grape.
Yeah.
And you can find that wine with some age on the bottle.
Yep.
And what are we talking if you had to do your
Like retail?
wholesale to retail ballpark?
Probably like $60.
And it's a total, nobody's drinking this, totally interesting.
Totally interesting, and it tastes like old Nebbiolo.
Really?
Yeah.
It has that characteristic.
That's how I sell it in the restaurant, and I've never had an issue.
Because I'm the type of guy who walks in and says, give me the funkiest, most reasonable thing you have. I get Canary Island wines and stuff like that. I mean, I would love to drink something
But people
like
branching out, I think it makes sense because you can still find value in those wines, and they're great, and they're, if you're from a great producer, generally very true to terroir, and that's what you want in a wine, right? So
Give me another trend or wine or an area that you like.
Yeah, I mean,
region. Doesn't have to be a trend.
Sure. I mean, well, if we go back to trends, I mean, natural wine trend, right? That's a big trend.
I mean, the Raw Wine Fair was here in Brooklyn last fall.
And
it's landed.
Yeah. It's exciting to see it cleaning up a little bit, I think. I think when it kind of first landed, maybe, what is this, probably like 8 years ago?
Yeah,
10
8
years
to
ago?
10. Yeah.
A lot of the wine was like undrinkable to me, like too stinky, too funky, too cider-like. I worked in Burgundy and came from clean Burgundy.
What happened? Did better guys come and push those guys aside, or those guys got better at making it?
I think both. I think a lot of the guys who are making those wine did a little bit more homework and started cleaning up their wineries a little bit more. But I also think the people who maybe are importing or distributing kind of figured out how to cherry pick a little bit more, so the ones that are in the market are a little bit better, a little bit cleaner, and it's great for that style of wine,
right?
Because it's starting to make a little bit more sense. Before it was pretty confusing, I think, for a general consumer. It's like, this isn't what I'm used to.
It's still
but it's getting
confusing,
better.
And it hasn't permeated the mass market yet.
Yeah.
There are restaurants and bars, that are committed to it.
Yeah.
When we talk about Blue Hill, we'll get into it more. Okay. But is that an important thing for Blue Hill to have a strong position
of natural wine?
In natural, organic, biodynamic?
I mean, it's just wine from farmers is really the most important thing, and generally that falls in the same category. But first and foremost, farmer with a story about why they're planting this grape or what they're doing.
And so it's definitely artisanal and farmer driven. Your interpretation of not just natural but organic, but what if you said to somebody, basically, here's the overview of what this type of wine is, how do you describe it?
For organic or biodynamic? Yeah, I mean, wine where it's letting the grape speak for itself in the region that it comes from with nothing added to it.
So in the winemaking, there's no intervention.
Pretty much, no. I mean, I'm not afraid of a little bit of sulfur. I think some wines need a little bit of sulfur. If it smells like a glass full of sulfur, it's probably not going to be great, and I'm probably not going to buy that. But I want the wine to be clean and pure, no matter where it's from or how it's made. And
clean and pure is at the grape level on the farm.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, if it's reductive when you're first making the wine, there are ways to, like open top ferment, get it out of there. So I think there are ways to
manipulation
do that,
that's not natural. Intervention.
Exactly.
Right. So that's why there's so many different styles and all of that. I think it's here to stay. I'm not sure, like I said, that it's hit a lot of restaurant lists.
Yeah.
Patrick Cappiello was talking about when he was at Gilt, somebody turned him onto it and he fell in love, and he said, there's no way I'm selling this stuff.
It's hard.
These guys are coming here to drink, Bordeaux and Colt Callies and, Tuscan wines and all that.
if we have those wines on our wine list and they're like too funky or too cloudy or, any of those things that might be off-putting for a guest, like, and I'm not there, it's like written on the cave sheet, like funky, let guests know, cloudy.
But you're screening that too. I mean, your taste, you'll catch that before it hits the table. This is too funky. This is this ain't gonna play well.
And
on
if someone
floor.
orders something like that, I usually go over and say, I'm not warning you, but I'm kind of warning you. This is what it's like. So if you don't want it, tell me now.
If they're up for it.
Yeah, and some of them, sometimes they aren't. Sometimes they're like, no way, give me, Chassagne Montrachet. I don't want Jura White. Something like that. Yeah.
As a sommelier, you've participated in some fun stuff.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about a few things because it's sort of behind the scene. But, it's a part of what you do. Wine and Spirits magazine. Is that Josh Green?
Yeah,
that's Josh. He does an event every year, and it's not that old. It's called Wine and Spirit Magazine Somm Scavenger Hunt. and I think you participated at the beginning.
So
I think you won it.
Yeah.
But what is it? It's an industry thing.
It is. So what they do is they pick a region or an area. So the first year it was the United States, so a very large region. And then the second year it was Australia. And then they send 5 or 6 groups of 3 sommeliers.
Teams.
3 teams of sommeliers to specific regions.
Selected by Wine and Spirits?
They select the
Or they could
the
select
regions,
a
and
captain
we choose what
and
we
he
want.
can go.
Yeah, exactly. They select a captain, the captain chooses the region, and then you go to that region. You pick a grape varietal that you think represents that region well. You choose 6 wines of that same grape varietal by tasting around. Then you bring those 6 wines back, and then you have kind of a taste-off, essentially, where you give a presentation on those 6 wines. It has to tell the story of why you chose those wines and why you think it represents that region.
So let's put some context into
Sure.
it. The first year you did U.S.
First year we
I would
did
assume
US.
it was out west.
It was all over.
It
So
was.
there was Finger Lakes Riesling. I think there was Willamette Valley Pinot Noir. There was Napa Valley Cabernet, which is what my team had. There was, I think, Sonoma Pinot Noir as well. Yeah, and maybe just like Washington State Cabernet.
So one team was all Finger Lakes Riesling.
Yep.
One team was all Napa.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your job was to go out and give the most interesting, best representation to compete.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
what's the game plan? I mean, what do you do when you get out there?
I mean, our game plan was to just taste like crazy, taste old school, taste new school, and talk to everyone about what they like. So we would go to winemakers like Steve Mathiasen in Napa and say, hey, what do you like? And he would say, here. And we'd just add them onto our list of people to visit, call them up and try to go visit them. So I remember Steve Mathiasen said, hey, you got to go to these guys at Smith Madrone. We went to Smith Madrone and
Which
we're
is
like...
an older winery.
Old,
not
been
even
around,
like, right.
Been around since the 70s.
It's not like Dirty and Rowdy or something.
Not even close. Yeah.
Right.
They have this amazing vineyard right on Spring Mountain, make like beautiful rustic style, old school Napa Cab, and it's, probably like $60 retail as opposed to some of these other ones. So the wines were phenomenal. So we kind of just discovered that and then made sure we represented some of the different regions of Napa, so the different AVAs within it, and then different styles too. So maybe like new, young, like Arno
Right.
Roberts Cabernet or something like that, and then, going against like Diamond Creek Cabernet. So 2 contrasting styles and everything in between.
So now you have
that tells the story.
You have your 6 wines.
Yep.
The other teams have their 6 wines.
Yep.
There's a panel of judges.
There's a big panel of judges, wine writers, master somms, all those kinds of
and they're looking
winemakers.
for what? Creativity, diversity, quality, all of that?
All of those things, and then, quality of the
Your
wines.
presentation.
Yeah, the presentation, quality of the wines, if the story makes sense, like, do these wines make sense in this story? Like, why did you choose these wines? And then, just kind of like the overall presentation skills, I think, as well. But we always chose a much more creative style of presentation. So,
More.
a little
More
bit.
what?
I don't know, like the
More
first...
animated?
Definitely more animated. The first year, everyone else did a PowerPoint presentation, and we knew that was going to happen. We said, everyone's going to do a PowerPoint presentation.
Boring, right?
And I said, and probably hand out rocks. And
Unless there's pictures of naked people or something.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not going to be fun,
no.
right?
So we went up with just kind of an easel and some markers, and we had like drawn a few things on the easel. But as we each told the story of the wine. By the way, the presentation is like 6 minutes long, so it's fast. Like
You have to get everything in.
45 seconds per wine. So we did almost like a draw as you go type of thing,
Right.
and they were like kind of funny and edgy and catchy and
Caught
silly.
everyone.
But
So you
it
won
kept
the
people's
first year?
attention. We won the first year.
You won the second year.
We won the second year
With Australian wines?
with Australian wine.
And have you done it since?
We just did it again, and we did Ontario Pinot Noir.
Now, same team 3 years in a row?
Yeah, same team 3 years in a row. Yeah.
Were other returning teams same teams, or they mix up a little?
No, we were the only returning team 2 years ago, and then last year they brought back another returning team. So it was,
What happened with the Ontario wine?
Well, we didn't win, but...
Do you think, no knock to Ontario wines, but do you think it had something to do with the wines?
I think so if you compare like Ontario Pinot Noir to say like the juicy, luscious Sonoma Pinot Noir, that Sonoma Pinot Noir is pretty delicious in the glass.
So taste is a big
thing.
decider
Yeah.
too. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
And Ontario
But
wine's hard and firm, and it's
good though.
Great. Yeah.
It's just in the context of other wines. Because, I've had Raj Par on and other guys, and Jasmine Hirsch, everybody's making a more restrained wine.
Totally, yeah.
So you have the restrained wine. I guess you have this Canadian wine. You have the big stuff and all of that.
Yeah, and everything in between.
But you know what? A noble effort to support. I know Michael Madrigal is a big Canadian wine fan.
Well, he was on my team.
Right. I knew that.
We went together.
All right, so that's the Somm scavenger hunt, which is a fun industry thing. And then we've had Daniel Jonas on, who pretty much founded La Paulée, and that is pretty much a Burgundy orgy.
Big time.
And also the Fête du Champagne, which is a champagne orgy.
Yeah.
And basically, tell people what you do. You pay to get tickets to the most amazing access of events, tastings, verticals. But Daniel brings in literally dozens of sommeliers.
Yeah, there's a lot of us.
To work for free?
Work for free.
But, and why do you
get paid sometimes? I mean,
why do you do it?
Because you get to taste some of the best wines you'll ever get to taste in your life, especially that grand tasting dinner.
It's an aggregation of stuff you own.
It's epic wines from epic wineries, from epic vintages that were stored properly and beautiful, especially, so the way it works is there's this grand gala dinner. So, people pay. Daniel Baloud cooks, and he brings in all sorts of chefs. Michel Trago cooks sometimes. Mostly old school French chefs. They all do a course, and then people pay to go to this dinner where these amazing chefs cook, and then they all bring their own wine.
Is any wine brought in besides what they bring in, or it's all about...
They bring in wine. Also, Daniel always kind of gives everyone a glass of generally Meursault, because this is kind of a payback to the La Paulée de Meursault, which is where this originated. So he's bringing the tradition over here. So he'll usually get a giant bottle or two of Meursault and give everyone a glass of that. Right. And then also at the table alongside you are the winemakers. So you're at a table with
who are there for the grand tasting
winemakers
that day, pouring their wine.
So
if
you're sitting next to
Armand Rousseau's guy.
Well, it's usually Rousseau himself or his daughter or Jean-Marc Rouleau or, like the Muneret-Giborg sisters or Guillaume d'Angeville. You're in luck because that's what you're drinking all night long.
So it's a very expensive event.
It is.
It's Burgundy. It's a special thing. And it sounds like it's equally special to sommeliers.
I think so. It's fun, and it's, they're also adding events that are a little bit more approachable and easier to afford, which is really exciting.
And cheaper Bordeaux and all that stuff.
Talks, seminars.
The schedule. If you're interested, anybody can go on the La Paulée website and find out more. All right, let's talk about Blue Hill for a little bit. It's fair to say the restaurant showcases local food and a wine list with producers who respect artisanal technique. We talked about that a little, but what does that mean in the context of Blue Hill?
I mean, I think it means, both the food and, what you're drinking in your glass are just representative of where they come from. The seasonality of the food here shows that, you're not going to get a tomato at Blue Hill or, in December or, a cucumber in your gin martini, if cucumbers aren't in season, those kinds of things. So
farm to table means what's available.
What's available, yeah.
And like you said, you're not going to get a gorgeous summer tomato in the middle of the winter.
Definitely
not. Just not going to play with that.
And then as far as the wine list, I mean, it's...
Is it more challenging?
I think a lot of people come in and expect all of the wines to be or local or a big, heavy local wine section, and it's
what do you mean, Long Island, New York State?
Long Island, New York State. I guess even Canada could be, Ontario could be considered. And there are a handful, but what I really like to highlight are farmers who are growing indigenous grape varietals in a particular region, kind of bringing the history back through the wine, which is what we're doing with a lot of the food here at Food at Blue Hill.
So is it more challenging at a place like that than a traditional restaurant, where there's lamb and fish? And
it can be.
It changes more than most places. Most restaurants now are seasonal, but you're going to get the steak and chops and fish.
Yeah.
What do you pair with asparagus? Do you ever get stuck with something?
Right. Yeah, big time. And also because you want diversity in what you're pouring, because we also have a ton of regulars who come in all the time, and lean to me to kind of just pour them something here and there, and I don't want to always have just Gruner Veltliner with the asparagus, which would be like the
classic matchup
because asparagus is so hard. So then you kind of like start branching out and just tasting a lot. So I think we did recently a petite arvine with the asparagus, and it worked beautifully.
Now, what is a petite arvine? Where is it from? What type of
Valle
grape?
d'Aosta, northern Italy, very high elevation, kind of herbal mountain white wine, fresh, full-bodied, but definitely like more herbaceous. So it really paired well with herbaceous type of green things.
Good
like
acidity.
Asparagus. Great
Did
acidity.
You say?
Yeah, great acidity.
Now, do you do? I would think I would leave it to you to eat there and do a by the glass or pairing program.
We have a pairing, yeah. And it changes as the menu changes.
It's not just the open bottles from the bar. I mean, you decide what you're going to...
It's never anything... It's generally never anything that's even on the wine list at all. I have like a stash of wines I kind of keep off to the side, and we'll rotate around them, and sometimes they'll get thrown onto the list if the dish changes, and then I'll order more of something else once I talk to the chef about kind of what's happening the following week.
So it's a good play.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of people think, there's a wine pairing. They're just going to dump wines on me.
Yeah,
it's quite the opposite at your place.
Yeah.
And probably at any good place.
Yeah.
They're well thought out wines.
They are, and
different.
they're fun and interesting and have a story. You know, it's very easy to make someone happy by pouring them, a glass of white Burgundy followed by a glass of Old Bordeaux. It's a little bit more difficult when you're doing like Petite Arvine followed by, Savoie White or something like this. But the staff is educated on the stories of the wine, and I think the wines are delicious and go well with the food. So
take me through a typical meal. Is it coursed? Is it a tasting menu?
Yeah, so there's two options. Well, actually, there's three options when you go. So there's a 4-course prefix menu.
Right.
So you have 3 savory and 1 dessert. And you have options for each course is there. And then there's what we call the Farmer's Feast, which is the set tasting menu of that day, which I think is the best thing to go for.
More courses than 4?
It's
or
6 courses, so you get 4 savory plus 2 dessert.
So how many, if you did the glass wine pairing, how many different wines are you tasting?
You're tasting 6.
You are.
Because you're going to start off with some bubbles
one every
first.
course.
Yeah,
dessert wines at the end.
Yeah,
or sweet wine.
something fun at the end
and
for dessert.
And on the 4-course, it's 4 wines?
Yeah.
Wow. So let's talk this past few weeks. The 6-course wine, what's the split between red and white?
This past week's been 2. We start off with bubbles, kind of for your little snacky bits at the front, and I tried not to choose champagne. Tried to choose something a little bit different.
Sparkler, though?
Sparkler, yeah,
like
generally
Cremant
a sparkler. Cremant, or right now we're using a really great cava producer that I really love.
Tell us.
Called Alta Alea is the producer.
Alta
Alella. And it's Brut Nature cava from a very small producer, very close to Barcelona, all Chiarello, which is the grape varietal. And it's just beautiful and dry and citrusy, but also kind of smoky and goes great with...
Nice.
Now you get a lot of like charcuterie and things like that at the beginning of the meal at Blue Hill.
Nice.
So it's nice to have something with a little bit more of like a texture to it.
Nice.
Yeah, it's great. And then generally, sometimes 2 white... Right now it's 2 whites, 2 reds, and then you get a dessert wine.
Some kind of dessert wine. Sounds great. And then if people buy bottles of wine, I mean, if they're wine knowledgeable, they'll drink 2-3 bottles in the course of a... I mean, if they're serious, they want to maybe do a sparkler or a white and
then
a
a red. Yeah.
That's typical.
Yeah.
And you guide them through all of that.
Yeah.
So Dan practices sustainability. He's famous for that.
Yes.
Does that carry over to you on how you select wines? We talked about it a little earlier with the natural wines. I wanted to save it. I mean, you said, God, people think I should have wines from New York or just natural. But how does it affect, how you put your list together?
Yeah, I mean, every wine on the list has a story and a reason why it's there. I don't know. We have Dom Perignon on the list too, but that's just because it's delicious. But other than that, most of the wines have a story, and it generally boils down to some sort of sustainable agriculture reason. A lot of the stories are the same, where the winemaker is planting cover crops in between the vines to like aerate the soil, and
so the story on most of the wines.
Oh, yeah.
Do you talk to the customers about it?
If they want. Not all of them. Yeah,
Right.
I feel it out.
But if people are interested, like, tell
Yeah.
me about this wine,
Yeah.
or, I want natural wines.
Oh, yeah.
You'll talk about all of that.
I think it's very important at a place like Blue Hill because everyone is there for the experience and they want the stories about the food, but also the wine. I mean, we're parading giant squash through the dining room.
Right.
So if we're like going to have a wine on the wine list, I hope we have a story behind that too.
Right.
So
That was my point.
Yeah,
There's a big story in the food. The wine shouldn't be, left out with that story. You've designed, or the wine list has been designed a little differently
Yes.
than most wine lists. You
Yeah.
open up a wine list and it says Italy,
Yeah.
France, Rhone, Jura, whatever.
Yeah.
Your wine list is presented how?
It's
interesting.
It's by style.
And you have over a dozen styles.
Yeah.
So explain to me why you do style and what some of the styles are.
So I think it's a little bit easier. First of all, the wine list isn't really that large. It's 150 selections, which compared to a lot of the other big restaurants in New York, it's way smaller.
But you rotate
Yeah, we rotate a lot.
because of the seasonality.
Yeah, we rotate a lot.
Okay, but it's very curated, obviously.
Yeah, it's very fun to have it broken up into style like that. So, for example, on the white wine side, there's crisp and bright, there's elegant and round, there's aromatic and floral, petrol and stone fruit, and then medium and rich. So what
that's
it does,
four
that's
different categories.
Yeah, 5, right? So
Yeah, 5.
what that lets me do is group things together. For example, like I can have, a white wine from the Canary Islands or from Corsica, alongside something like a Sancerre, and it doesn't get lost.
Right.
So it's, people just go straight for like Sancerre category for something like light and fresh, which fair enough, it's easy
Right.
to go to. But there's something like a Corsican Vermentino right above it or right below it. They kind of see that too. Like, what's that?
Does that make the customer a little more comfortable or focused?
Definitely.
In general. I mean, a lot of wine people who know wine don't need that.
In general,
but-
I think it makes the conversation with the guest way easier. Especially with reds, because we have like a page of Pinot Noirs, but mixed alongside those are things like Blaufränkisch or, I don't know, maybe a carbonic macerated Listan Negro from Lanzarote or something like this. So
There
these
you
like
go.
crazy things that what are going to be on the Canary Islands categories
Right.
with like 1 or 2 wines,
Right.
it would just be
gives
overlooked.
gives you some good leeway.
Gives me leeway and it lets me move the wines a lot more.
Do you ever hear from customers that you don't have enough of the big Bordeaux's or Cali Colts or Burgundies?
Oh, sure.
Because I think that type of restaurant, you may get the type of clientele that's like, I want a
Yeah.
89, Conseil, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, there's something in every category, but generally just like 1 or 2, especially Bordeaux.
Not an issue, really.
Yeah, Barolo, there's like 2, Burgundy, there's like 1 Nuit Saint-Georges, 1 Chambon Musigny, 1 Gevrey Chambertin.
It's there.
It's there and it hits all different price points and styles.
Right.
So there's a way to find something for everybody, whether or not you want a big, heavy Napa Cab or
Right.
like a light, easy drinking Beaujolais.
So the wine list is designed by style, not region.
Mm-hmm.
And you describe some of the styles
Mm-hmm.
in white. What's the slant? If you look at Italian, French,
Mm-hmm.
American, of the 150 plus
Yeah.
bottles,
It's-
how does the slant,
It's mostly French.
It is mostly French?
It's mostly French, yeah. I think,
And within French, it's mostly...
it's pretty varied
It is.
all over France. Yeah, it really is. At the
Why
moment, especially.
is that? It pairs well with the food? Is that your... not directive, but your direction?
Yeah, it pairs with the food. It's just like French wine is generally pretty clean,
So if you were forced to do more Italian, it
Yeah.
would be harder because there's more French wines, regions, types. It just plugs in better.
it plugs in better, and I probably just taste more French wine. I mean, I just have a natural affinity, generally
Right.
speaking, more towards French wine. But then I would say Italian plays a close second, U.S. probably third after that, and then kind of a little bit of everything else in between, Greek,
Right.
Spain,
The stuff people
wherever
want.
else. Yeah.
We're going to take a break in a few minutes, but not yet. You also have a nice large beer list, too.
Yeah.
More than most restaurants. There's
Yeah.
some pretty cool beers there.
Yeah.
Same thing. Take some time to get the diversity in different types and areas.
Definitely. And
Why
then
do you have such a big beer list?
We have the beer list was kind of a collaboration between myself and the person that was there before me, and then after I came with like one of the other managers that I work alongside, and then we started kind of building these relationships with a lot of local local brewers in the
There's
area.
a lot now.
Yeah, there's a lot now. There's a lot of great ones who kind of just they change what they're doing so often, so it's
Right.
almost like a CSA of beer. It's like, here's what we have, here's what you get.
Right.
You know, and it's really fun for the staff, I think, to learn different styles. So we represent all different types of styles, but also, again, like breweries with stories.
So go back. If I do the 4 or 6 course dinner, you have the wines by the glass slotted out. Can I say to you, listen, what am I getting? 6 wines? Can you knock one out and give me a beer?
Totally.
Would you do that?
We would do that. We also actually have printed on the menu, it says, please inquire about non-traditional pairings. So we'll also do a whole pairing where it's not just wine. We'll incorporate beer, some sort of cocktail, spirit, maybe sherry, maybe cider. I make sweet vermouth. We put in the sweet vermouth sometimes.
Right. You have a
things.
couple of your own brand.
We have all
things.
sorts of little things that we'll throw in there and make it fun. You know,
Very
like,
cool.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to subject you to our wine list, ask you a bunch of questions.
Okay.
We're sitting with Michelle Biscieglia. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Michelle is the wine director at Blue Hill, which we talked, a little about. Very interesting place. You're listening to The Grape Nation on the Heritage Radio Network. We'll be right back after this break.
Bob's Red Mill has been milling whole grains since 1978. When you mill whole grains, you get all 3 parts: the bran, the germ, and the endosperm. The bran, or the roughage, makes up about 14% of the whole grain. It's the outer skin of the edible kernel. It contains large amounts of B vitamins, some protein, trace minerals, phytochemicals, but most importantly, dietary fiber. Learn more at bobsredmill.com/podcast.
Hey, like what you hear? Heritage Radio Network has plenty more. With fresh programming every week, we've got something for everyone. Trying to start your own food business? Concerned about where your food comes from? Looking for the best wine or beer to bring to a party? Find our shows on iTunes or Stitcher, or head to heritageradionetwork.org to listen live and subscribe to our newsletter.
All right, we're back. We're back with my guest, Michelle Biscieglia from Blue Hill in New York City on Washington.
75 Washington Place, in between 6th Avenue and McDougal.
And it's a step-down restaurant, and it used to be a speakeasy?
It did, yeah. There's a lot of different stories. There's a lot of neighbors that come and tell us, oh, I remember this. This used to be this or that. It was a place actually called Marta.
Not the Danny Meyer Marta.
No, a different Marta, yeah, a while ago. And then it was also kind of a place where, like, a lot of, Army pilots used to hang out.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
It's
like
just-
at a bar, speakeasy, yeah.
It became a hangout for them. And Blue Hill opened in, 2000? Mm-hmm. It's been around a while.
17 years now.
All right, so we're going to subject Michelle to our wine list and hope to get some good info from her.
Okay.
All right, so question 1, what are you drinking now? Not right in front of you, but what are you tasting, trying, new, restaurant, personal, home?
Yeah. Home, we drink a lot of, light, fresh whites, actually. Especially,
Be specific.
Yeah, so, Muscadet is something I always have in my refrigerator.
Give me a couple of good producers.
Pepier. Is my favorite. We have Malvasia, dry Malvasia from the Canary Islands.
Malvasia.
Yep.
A red wine?
White wine.
White wine from the Canary Islands.
From the Canary Islands.
Good value?
Great value.
Is there a producer you could throw out?
Producer I love is Los Bermejos, Bermejos.
And that's a Malvasia from the Canary Islands.
Yep, great. All stainless steel, so very fresh, aromatic and floral, very pretty, but crushable.
Those are good ones.
Yeah.
Does it change with you? Like in the winter,
All the
obviously
time. It
you'll
changes
switch.
every week. Yeah.
You have a farm to table brain now, All right, next question. I wish Simone was here. He'll walk in. Give me your favorite wine and food pairing.
Ooh.
Yours.
Okay. That's hard, but my favorite food My favorite food in the world is just like a very simple spaghetti pomodoro. And Simone, my husband, makes the most incredible like pomodoro sauce in the world. It's just very simple tomato sauce. He like lets it cook for about 8 hours, and
The sauce?
The sauce. Just like
And it's just a simple tomato.
very, very simple.
Do we know the ingredients? It's like canned whole
It
tomatoes
can
or
be
crushed?
in the winter. Yeah, it can
Does
be
he
canned
use
whole.
fresh tomatoes sometimes?
In the summertime, he does. He generally mixes it with part canned, part fresh. But he'll buy like the really good, high quality canned tomatoes.
Garlic,
imported from
onion?
Italy. Garlic, no onion.
No onion.
Great olive oil. It's a very good olive oil is an important component, and he just kind of like lets it simmer.
Nice.
Yeah, he sweats out the garlic a
So
little bit.
what pairs with that?
So what
You could
we've-
change, but what's the classic?
Yeah, I think what we drink a lot with that are wines from like the northern Piedmont, but like more simple grapes. Like Grignolino is one of my.
Is that Alta Piedmont or Northern Piedmont?
It's Piedmont. I guess you just
Okay.
call it Piedmont.
Okay.
But but there's two great varietals that I love from Piedmont that are not Nebbiolo, and they are Grignolino and Fresia.
Are these red or?
They're both red.
So Grignolino,
Yep.
G-R-I,
Grignolino. Grignolino.
Grignolino.
Grignolino.
Okay.
Another one is Fresia. Freisa.
Frasier.
Yeah. Freisa.
Freisa.
Yeah. And they're great with this pasta
Good value
sauce because
wines?
both great value
Okay.
wines. Yeah, I don't drink anything too high end
Right.
or expensive at home.
Except for an occasion or whatever.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
So we're looking at a simple spaghetti pomodoro
Mm-hmm.
with some northern Piedmont wines, Grignolino
Yep.
and
Fresia.
Fresia.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Very easy to say.
That's a first. You know, Scott Connon kind of became famous with Scarpetta for
Sure.
that simple pomodoro, spaghetti
good.
dish. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I don't ask this to people. It's not on the regular list.
Okay.
But we talked about it earlier. Hardest food to pair a wine with. You've got more experience with that than anyone.
I think, very often on the tasting menu at Blue Hill, actually at the moment, it's this, where we do, two vegetable fish, something like that, and then we'll do a meat course, and then we finish with vegetable, like right now it's with parsnip steak, which is a parsnip that's treated like a steak.
They do that with cauliflower. and a lot of
Yeah,
that
so
stuff.
it's like you're doing this.
So it's a dense vegetable,
Yeah.
grilled or...
Yeah. And it comes, or it's like very difficult. But, depending on kind of how it's cooked, right now it's lightly pickled before it's kind of grilled. So we're actually pairing it with Lopez de Heredia red wine. So Rioja red wine, but it's almost like sweet and sour red wine. So it goes actually really well with the parsnip. And it's also about, like the progression of the wines on the pairing too. You're going to go back to something different. So yeah, it's fun. That's the hardest thing for me to do is
That's cool.
Follow that.
Simone, we asked Michelle her favorite wine and food pairing, and she said your Pomodoro and a Nebbiolo wine.
Grignolino.
Not a Nebbiolo, Grignolino. My bad. Do you have a favorite wine and food pairing besides that?
I would say that I probably like to pair the margherita pizza slice,
Right,
with a glass of Fiano di Avellino.
Ooh.
Which is Sicilian?
That's Campania.
That's
Campania.
But volcanic area. Yeah.
So pizza, here, move up closer. Pizza and
Pizza and Fiano. Yeah,
Fiano.
you can't go wrong.
Michelle, give me a good Fiano.
Producer?
It's a fairly reasonable wine.
Fairly
right?
reasonable wine. The one that we drink the most at home right now is called Guido Marsella. Marsella is the
Okay.
producer, and it is a delicious, soulful, smoky white wine.
Great.
Yeah.
Simone knows because he's a famous chef, so that's why I asked him. All right, Michelle, your favorite wine restaurant and or bar, obviously besides Blue Hill, where the slant towards the wine selection and service is impressive to you.
Yeah, I mean, as far as wine bar with food, we go to Compagnie Servan Naturelle quite a bit.
Caleb.
Yeah.
I call him Caleb, but it's Caleb. He comes up a lot.
Yeah, that
Give
place,
me another one.
Another one.
Good food, good wine, funky, nice.
Good food, good wine, funky, nice. I mean,
Have you ever done a mixtape there?
oh yeah. No, I haven't.
Okay,
I haven't.
I guess you're on the
maybe
on deck somewhere.
on the deck list. Yeah. Pasquale Jones, we love going there.
Great.
I mean, I love pizza. I could eat pizza every day.
You know, Robert and all that.
Charlie Bird.
Yeah.
Charlie Bird.
Yeah.
So you guys are in heaven.
Yeah.
Tell me your favorite all-time wine. What's the wine?
I mean,
to this day just resonates. It was either life-changing, birthday.
Well, the wine that got me into wine, the wine that made me change my whole direction of my life was a 1966 Burgundy from Domaine Leroy producer, and it was Pomard Epinot. 1966.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was this something you tasted at Pastis?
Yep.
Or it was?
Exactly. Yeah.
Amazing.
And that's the one that made me say, I want to go to this part of the world and find out why this happens.
Great.
So it's a wine I'll never forget.
That's a good one. I don't think anyone on the show has knocked a 66 on this list.
Yeah.
All right, last question. Tap into your expertise, and we sort of broached this a little.
Mm-hmm.
Best wine around $15 retail. I want a red and a white. My oldest son's 27. He's going to dinner with 6 other friends. He's bringing 3 bottles of wine.
Uh-huh.
He wants to impress, but he ain't spending a lot of money.
Okay.
What red is he going to buy in that around that price range?
Red. Let's see. I mean, probably Beaujolais. I would say Beaujolais. Yeah.
That's Gamay.
That's Gamay. I mean, $15 retail.
15 to 20.
You'd probably have to go with a kind of very unknown producer, perhaps.
Not crappy, just
unknown. But you
Okay.
could also do Marcel Lapierre does his Raison Gaulois, it's called, and it's Gamay. It's like non-appellation Beaujolais, but it's delicious.
That's
light, easy, and fresh.
Good
and
call
then
on that.
and then white. There's a Vinho Verde from Portugal that I think is really good, and it's from a producer called Asnella. Asnella.
Now, would you rank that above a Muscadet or
Similar.
I
So
put
that
Muscadet is always the right answer for a white at 15. That's quality, but
but this particular Vinho Verde is maybe even like $13.
Okay, so Vinho Verde from Asnella.
Yeah,
okay,
in Portugal.
So that's a good one.
Yeah.
All right, you did a yeoman's job on our wine list, but more importantly, you gave us a lot of great recommendations, which is really why I do it.
Good.
All right, our last segment in the show is our weekly wine sip. That's when we taste wine. So every week we taste a different wine on air. For our weekly wine sip this week, we are going to taste, because it's hot out and it's summer,
it is.
a 2015 La Spinetta Toscana Vermentino by Giorgio Rivetti from Casanova della Spinetta.
Yeah.
This wine is from the Tuscan region, and I'm going to ask you in a second. Most Vermentinos are not Tuscan, so this is a little different.
Right.
It's 100% Vermentino grape, this particular one. This wine retails for about $14 to $20, and it's fairly readily available at better wine stores. All right, so what more can you tell me about Vermentino?
Yeah.
And can you tell me anything specifically? And I'm going to ask Simone to pour.
So Vermentino is also a wine that I always have in my refrigerator. I actually really love the grape varietal. I think it's pretty undervalued and underrepresented very often. I love it from Corsica, from Liguria in northern Italy. You see it a little bit from Tuscany sometimes. Generally, it's a little bit more oaked in Tuscany.
Okay.
If you do find it, but it's soft. It's very floral, almost melony in kind of like taste profile, but generally very clean, pure, and dry.
So, Corsica, Liguria. Where else did you say?
I just said those two. Tuscany.
Okay, so that's France and Italy.
Yeah.
But Corsica is like right above
Sardinia.
Right.
Yeah.
Aren't the grapes called something different in other regions?
Well, this one is not. This one in Corsica is called Vermentine New.
Okay.
So it's only one letter off.
Okay.
And then in northern Italy, it's still Vermentino.
And Rivetti and La Spinetta is basically a Tuscan or a Barolo?
Giorgio Rivetti, so he's actually located in the Asti region.
Okay.
Is where La Spinetta, the winery, is, which is very close to Barolo.
Okay.
It's not too far from Barolo or Barbara. It's closer to Barbaresco. And they make a lot of different wines from the Asti region, also from Tuscany. They're very well known for their Moscato d'Asti, but they also make really great white and red vermouth as well. They make a lot of different wines. You go there, I've been there.
Pretty diverse.
I've been there. I've tasted it. I think
Is it
was
considered a good, better quality winemaker?
It is.
I mean, he's making a lot of stuff, but it's good.
It's good. Yeah,
Okay.
he sources. He's smart about where he sources from, and he's meticulous with detail. So I think it's translated in the wine.
All right, so we're going to taste it. First, let's look at the color. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a
It's very pale, light straw color, I would say.
pale straw, but there's
Yeah.
definitely a yellow to it,
Yep.
but it's pale.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about the nose.
Yeah, so it smells great. It smells almost like cantaloupe, melon, honeydew, a touch of almost salinity, on the
definitely
nose.
some
You can
salinity.
smell.
I guess
smell the
Tuscan,
sea.
the coast, or whatever.
Yeah,
So it's got a nice nose. I get a little apple in there.
yeah, it's very
A little-
pretty, floral. Like
Yeah.
honeysuckle a little bit too.
All right, let's throw it over
Back.
the tongue, and you got a head start. Let's give it a taste. So let's start with mouthfeel.
Yeah,
Medium, light,
medium.
Medium?
Yeah, it's not really light, huh? It's
good
got
mouthfeel.
Good mouthfeel, good texture.
You feel
Coats your
some
whole mouth.
acidity.
Yeah.
So it's mouth coating, medium.
Mouth coating,
good
medium
texture.
bodied. On the palate, the taste is similar to what it smelled like. It's pretty. It's got apple notes. It's floral. Touch of that honeysuckle on the finish, but dry.
Lots of
acid
fruit.
is high. Yeah, it's fruity, but acid hits you at the end, so it's good. Balanced.
Do you pick up any minerality or?
Yeah, a little bit. It's kind of salty.
Yeah. On the
Yeah.
a little of the aftertaste.
Yeah.
There's a little salt on the tongue.
Yeah.
Balanced.
Balanced. Yeah, I would say if this is $14 retail. It's great.
I'd say probably 14's the low end, 15,
Yeah.
$16.
Yeah.
So it's a good summer coiffer.
I'd say.
Now
Yeah.
let's talk about what do we pair with this?
Yeah. I mean, right now, I think Vermentino is a great varietal for a lot of these spring vegetables that are kind of out.
Ramps and green onions,
peas, exactly.
peas.
Spring onions, fiddlehead ferns, all the different greens that you see in the market right now. Yeah, this is like a great.
So
wine
a
for those.
Vermentino goes great with all those spring vegetables.
Yeah, definitely.
Is that one of the top choices, or it's a good choice? I mean, you wouldn't do a red with those, right?
No, I wouldn't.
Right.
I wouldn't. No, I think Vermentino is a great choice for that. Yeah.
Okay. Do we like this wine?
I do like it. Yeah.
Is it a good wine for the price?
I think so. I think price point, value. It's good.
It's made well and
Yeah.
okay.
It's clean. It tastes like Vermentino, which is what you want.
Right.
It's definitely Italian. You can taste the Italian in it. It's
Can
good.
you distinguish a Tuscan Vermentino from a Ligurian or a
Yeah.
Corsican?
Oh yeah.
Would you be able to tell
Corsican?
me a trait different from this?
Corsican is yeah. I mean, this is definitely richer than
It is richer?
This is richer than a Corsican or a Ligurian one would be. Corsican one for me is always way more floral.
Okay.
And a little bit more softer, but it really has that kind of piercing melony thing, where this is a little bit richer, more appley, more round. It's got more weight, more body, more texture. And then Liguria is like salt bomb.
It is.
It's so, because it's grown, if you could picture Cinque Terre in your mind, it's
Right.
grown on those cliffs, sea spraying on the grapevines. Yeah.
So the question isn't really what's the best region. It's what do you like and what are you eating and
Exactly.
what pairs.
Yeah.
That Ligurian may pair better with something, or some people may have more of a taste than a richer wine.
Yeah.
So Vermentino, you could look at those three areas. I brought the Tuscan one in just because I knew it was a bit of an outlier. I was curious.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the 2015 La Spinetta Toscana Vermentino. It's made by Giorgio Rivetti from Casanova della Spinetta. It's $14 to $20. Michelle liked it.
I did.
Pairs well with
I'm
a
gonna
lot
finish
of
it.
wines. I saw Simone smiling a bit, so I think he liked it. But I'd be challenged
too.
that if I gave him anything, he'd smile. But that's just me. All right, I wanted to talk about one last thing before we wrap
Sure.
up the show. When we were talking about Blue Hill, Dan Barber is definitely a leader in the community of sustainable food and farm to table and all that. The reason I'm bringing it up is because a very cool event just ended, and it happened in the States a year or two ago,
2 years
and you
ago.
just did it in London. It's called Wasted. It's WASTED.
capital E, capital D,
ED.
as
So
in
it's-
waste education.
Wasted food, all the food that you throw away, or what you don't think you would use, and there's a lot of food that's thrown away. So Dan put this sort of, it's more of a cause and a program
Yeah,
together. Talk about
definitely.
it for a second.
Sure. So when we did it in New York City, we totally changed the restaurants. We closed down Blue Hill, New York, reopened as Wasted, and the entire restaurant was made from things that were wasted. So, for example, the tables were grown from like mushroom spores into a table. Hanging on the walls of the restaurant for decor was remade, which is what
So you really transformed.
the entire thing. Yeah.
It wasn't just the food. It was you're
everything.
sitting on a table that was reconstituted. from
Exactly.
something.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then the menu was, full of ingredients that normally would have been tossed out. So, for example, we partnered with a lot of
The tops of
purveyors and
carrots or whatever.
Tops of carrots, ugly vegetables. But if you go to Russ and Daughters and get a smoked salmon, they kind of like just fillet it, and there's this whole piece in the middle that, yes, the bloodline is there, but there's still meat attached to the sides there, and they would just toss it because they're doing it quick and getting rid of it.
Tails.
So we
whatever.
did that with Acme Smoked Fish Company
In Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn, we partnered with Baldor, who does
They're
they
the
do
biggest produce guys.
biggest produce guys, but they also do a already prepared, already cleaned vegetable side thing too. And when they're cleaning the vegetables, they're just like chopping off the top and the bottom of a carrot or peeling them or pre-peeling them and tossing the peelings. They had tons. I mean, literally tons and tons of vegetable waste.
So Dan's task was to show the world that with all this throwaway wasted stuff,
don't have to
that he
throw it
would
away.
construct these delicious meals.
Yeah, but we also we named them funny. The salad was called the dumpster dive salad because it's literally things that Valder would throw in the dumpster. We had an item on the menu that was called dog food because it's all the offcuts of meat that would normally go into dog food.
Right.
So you're in the kitchen, you're like, did the chef just fire one dog food? But they did. But the one thing that we did that we still actually have on the menu today is the juice pulp vegetable burger. So we were using...
What is that?
So it's a veggie burger made with leftover kind of pressings from when you're making juice. So being in the West Village, there's 8 juice places.
So the texture, it's all vegetable,
It's
and the
all
texture's
vegetable.
there.
Yeah,
it's
texture's
just
there.
The throwaway pulp and all of that.
Yeah, but
so it's seasoned and other
It's
added.
delicious. It's
God.
delicious. So we have that on our current bar menu now, which we're calling our fast food menu, which is kind of a throwback to Wasted.
So this happened in London. It was staged as a pop-up somewhere?
It was a pop-up on the rooftop of Selfridges, which is a department store. But
very
they
high
have
profile.
Very high profile, and it was 7 weeks long. And again, every night they had a guest chef, from Europe.
And the type of thing that sells out, I mean, people are coming from all over.
It's sold out immediately.
Can we anticipate something coming back here in the future? I mean, not corner
Maybe.
you to something.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm sure it'll happen.
Yeah, maybe not the same exact concept, but perhaps something a little bit different.
All right. So that's sort of a admirable thing and a very inventive and creative thing.
Yeah.
The awareness part is huge.
That's what it's
you
all
can
about.
do. Yeah, and if you could just move people a little.
Yeah. The thing is, it's not really that new, right?
Right.
In most cultures, they do it already.
Right.
It's
Yeah, we're the
Or
worst.
in cooks, it's in
That's why
in-
City Harvest goes around and picks up truckloads of, used food and old food and all that. All right. I want to thank Michelle Biscieglia from Blue Hill for joining us. If you have a question, a wine happening, or an event, hit me up at sam@thegrapenation.com. That's sam@thegrapenation.com. You could follow The Grape Nation on Facebook at The Grape Nation. We will post Michelle's wine list answers probably by Friday. So if things sounded good, they'll be laid out specifically for you. We are on Instagram at SBenRuby, and we're on Twitter at JustBenRuby. And you can listen to this and all the Grape Nation shows on iTunes, Stitcher, and you can go to the Heritage Radio Network website. Michelle, where can we follow you? You are on Instagram?
I have a Twitter account. I don't really use it, but I have
Okay.
the same handle for both Twitter and Instagram. It's Mish Bisc. So that's MICHBISC. as in Michelle.
Okay.
Biscieglia.
So you could follow Michelle. Today she was out having DeFara's Pizza, which is considered the greatest pizza in the world. And Dom, the guy who makes the pizza, was there.
He was there.
They took their little Vespa or whatever they're riding around in there.
I have a Vespa.
And I think Simone picked up a goat or a donkey or whatever at some meat store. That's okay. That's what they're going to have for dinner tonight. And what about Blue Hill? Website or?
Blue Hill is www.bluehillfarm.com. And on Instagram and Twitter as well, it's at Blue Hill Farm.
And we talked about the wine list. You can go online, see the wine list,
it's on
the way
the
Michelle
website.
lays it out by style and the descriptions and all that, and the type of wines. And you know what? When you go on a site like that, look at the wine list. There's a lot of inspiration there. Because don't forget, when you look at the prices, those are restaurant prices. If you can imagine finding those wines retail, and not all of them are available.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they're less, and there's some great wines. But we also talked about, some other wines. So I want to thank you, Michelle, for coming in, and I want to thank our engineer Vitor and everyone at the Heritage Radio Network. I'm Sam Ben Ruby, and you've been listening to The Grape Nation.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. For our freshest content and to hear about exclusive events, subscribe to our newsletter. Enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at heritage_radio. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization driving conversations to make the world a better, fairer, more delicious place. And we couldn't do it without support from listeners like you. Want to be a part of the food world's most innovative community? Rate the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join our community by becoming a member. Just click on the beating heart at the top right of our homepage. Thanks for listening.